name is Brian Benson with Bean Estate Sales in Oklahoma City, and today I'm here to talk to you about what's a good seller and what are not good sellers at our local estate sales. And the reason why I kind of bring this up is a lot of times families will try to get rid of stuff, and sometimes they get rid of the wrong items instead of letting us try to sell them for them. And a lot of times they keep what really doesn't sell that well, so I'm here to try to give everybody a little bit of advice. Now obviously the top sellers at every estate sale are going to be guns, because guns are always desirable. Silver, by this we mean normally sterling flatware or other sterling items, gold jewelry, and also coins or collectible coins. These are always what we call the top tier of all the most sellable items at any estate sales. Unfortunately, almost every estate sale, some family member will always keep them, so these don't get to pop up at every estate sales, but if you do get the opportunity to sell them, these are one of our best sellers, so if you can sell them, that's a good idea too. Next seller would be, or next top seller is going to be tools. Tools are one of the few things that, even if someone approaches us with just tools, we can make an entire estate sale out of tools if there's enough. Tools, we always have demand for tools. Tools have the highest resale that you recoup versus a new price of anything in your house. Every time, when we look at estate sales, we're always judging, is there enough tools when we're actually looking to sell to see whether it's worth doing or not worth doing. Another top seller, oddly enough, is going to be your kitchen items. When people come into your sale, a lot of times they're looking for good, usable things. So a lot of times this is going to include your kitchen items, and by this we mean like cookware, bakeware, that type of stuff. Not really so much your glassware or your dinnerware, because those are style specific, but the normal, good, usable appliances and all that type of stuff. Another item we always look for is new furniture, and by this we mean furniture less than 10 years old. If it's still in style at the local furniture store, it's still going to be in style if people are going to be buying at your estate sale. So we always look for furniture that's less than 10 years old, because those are going to be really hot sellers. Another odd thing that kind of surprises people are mattresses. The reason why mattresses sell real well is because they're very expensive new, and they are not style specific, so it doesn't matter what your decor is. Once you put it on your bed, no one knows what the mattress is going to look like. And a lot of people will buy mattresses for guest rooms that get reused very infrequently, so these usually sell very well for us. Another thing along the same lines as furniture is going to be current decor. Anything that's currently in style, when people see it in a magazine, they want to see it in their home too. So if you've got current style, these are always really good things to sell. And the other thing we would say is going to be current collectibles. And by current collectibles, we mean collectibles that are hot right now, not collectibles that were hot 10 years ago or 30 years ago. We mean the hot current collectibles that everybody wants right now. All right, and next I'm going to go over the things that don't sell quite so well at estate sales. And this is the part where I really feel bad, because almost every week I have to talk to a family and kind of break their heart, because they have expectations on something in their house, and the reality is that some of the stuff just doesn't sell that well. The first category on that is going to be pianos and organs. I cannot tell you how many times organs are almost totally unsellable. And if somebody ever comes up to me and says, hey, I want to make a deal on this organ, I will make sure they do not leave an estate sale without that organ. We sell usually maybe 1 in 10 organs. No matter how cheap their price, we sell very little organs. Same goes for pianos, particularly upright pianos. It used to be pianos were a status symbol. When you had a piano in your home, it meant that you're middle class or upper class. It was very much the social thing. You had to have a piano, and that doesn't really apply anymore. A lot of people don't know how to play the piano. If they do, they don't want it in their house. And when we get pianos, we're very lucky to sell them even for like $100 or $200. People never believe me on this. I always say, well, try to see if you can donate it to your local church. They always call me back, and their church won't take it, their thrift stores won't take them. It's just because you have to realize every family had a piano, and as the estates come up, no one's buying the piano, so there's this huge glut of pianos in the marketplace. So nobody wants to deal with them. Churches can't handle them all, so we get lots of extra pianos. Next category of furniture is what we call it's basically your whole dining room. And that's going to be your dining room furniture, your silver, your china, your crystal. And by silver, I don't mean sterling, I mean silver plate or stainless. The reason why these don't sell well anymore is because the whole trend of formal dining and grand dining is kind of a bygone thing. You know, people don't really do the big dining like they used to do in the 40s, 50s, even up to the 80s. Now, you know, when people entertain, if they come over, people watch TV while they're eating. If they take friends out, they go out to eat. And what we've seen is, you know, china just really doesn't move well anymore. Crystal doesn't move well anymore. Dining room sets, when we go into, like when you look at newer houses, a lot of times they turn the dining rooms into media centers or into home offices. And this whole trend of the whole formal entertaining just isn't the way that people live anymore. And because it's not the way they live anymore, they aren't going to buy the stuff for that, you know, because it's just not how we live anymore. Next thing I would say that's normally a pretty bad seller is going to be your entertainment centers and your TVs. And by this, I mean the old tube TV that everybody got rid of when the flat panels came along. And the other result of that is when they came along and they were flat and could hang on the wall, people didn't feel embarrassed about having them in their living rooms. And once they did that, they got rid of the entertainment centers or these big armoires that they were hiding the TVs to begin with. So all these armoires that people converted from clothes into TVs, now nobody wants them because your TVs, you know, that one proportionally they just physically cannot fit because TVs now are wider than they used to be. But also people just don't have this need to hide it like they used to. Next category, I would say that are really what we call bad sellers is anything maple. Maple furniture is, you know, used to be, it was the hot thing back in the 50s and 60s. Everybody had maple furniture. Right now, given the age groups of most of the people we do estate sales for, almost everybody has maple furniture. It pops up in Oklahoma City. There'll be 30 estate sales every week. There'll be 30 estate sales with maple furniture. And there's just so much supply of it and not enough demand for it that it normally or a lot of times will go unsold at an estate sale. Next thing along that same lines I would say would be desks. And by this I mean a lot of times people will have big commercial desks or office equipment in their home. And those really don't sell. A lot of what we look for, or a lot of what does sell is going to be the newer desks, the newer office equipment, you know, the stuff that you see, you know, at your local furniture store that's in style will sell. But kind of the old, outdated commercial style desks rarely sell at estate sales. I would also say along this is going to be older collectibles. Like I said earlier, talking about, you know, new collectibles are really sellable. Older collectibles, and by this I mean things that were collectible 10, 20, 30 years ago, a lot of times are collectible now because as people age and the younger generation comes up and decides they want to buy something, you know, the collectibles, what we say is they age out of being collectible anymore. And a lot of along this I would say, like, you know, think about like Hummels, you know, 20, 30 years ago, an individual Hummel were, you know, $200, $300. They used to be 20 years ago the hottest shoplifted item at any estate sale. People would steal them. We had to lock them up. I mean, it was just amazing how hot Hummels were, you know, 20 to 30 years ago. Now, when we sell Hummels, they're sometimes in the $20 to $30 range. We don't have to lock them up. We can leave them all out. Nobody will ever steal them because they're not even considered worth stealing anymore. And a lot of collectibles kind of go along the same lines, like, you know, Beanie Babies, Cabbage Patch Kids, you know, things that were once hot. Once they are no longer hot, you know, they're still out there, but there's not a lot of buyers out there buying them. So what we have to do is we have to keep reducing the price down to get somebody motivated enough to actually buy them. Next thing on the list, and this always kind of surprised people, is handicap items. And by handicap items, I mean like the walkers, the wheelchairs, the mobility assist scooters. The reason why these don't sell very well is because almost all the time when you need one, your insurance company or Medicare or Medicaid will provide one for you. So that $8,000 scooter that you got, you know, 6 months before somebody passed away, when you go to resell it, a lot of times these only sell for a couple $100 because if somebody needs one, they can get one provided for them at no cost, and that kills the resale value on these items. The next category would be stuff that we call it the in-between era. It's the stuff that is not really new enough to be current, but not really old enough to be antique. And it's this weird in-between era that right now I would call it the, 70s, 80s, 60s era where the stuff isn't really, it's not popular and new and current, and it's not old and antique or vintage or collectible. And that is a weird category that a lot of the stuff from that, because it's very style specific, there's not a lot of people who are buying it because when people look at it, it's kind of, it doesn't really fit into any group of collectability. And then finally, I would talk about antiques. Antiques are a very broad category. Antiques can be anything from the 1500s all the way up to some people consider stuff from the 1990s antique. But because it's such a broad category, people always come and say, oh, we have all these antiques. And often, it can be anything. And some antiques are collectible. Some antiques are worth a lot of money. But a lot of antiques, because of the style, may or may not be worth money, or may not be desirable, or may not be able to find a buyer locally who's really interested in them because it's more of a style versus a value thing anymore with antiques, because most people buy antiques for decor. So it has to be something that fits with their style. And the reason why I'm bringing these up is, like I said, people always, when the family comes in and they collect stuff or keep stuff, and then they call us when everything's left over. And often the things that, I said were top sellers are often the things that the family wants, obviously, but that's also the stuff that the buying public also wants. And the stuff the family turns their nose up on are also a lot of times the stuff that the public is also going to turn their nose up. So if you have any discretion on being able to determine, if people are getting stuff or not getting stuff, or if you're kind of debating on whether to include a coin collection in a sale, I always say, put it in the sale, because that's going to be a more important value to your sale to get people in the door. And once they're there, there's a better chance that we can get them to buy more stuff once they're in the door. By me bringing this up, the reason why we're bringing this up is to try to prepare people, because obviously we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't want anybody to be insulted. We just want to give people a very clear idea of what's selling in the marketplace right now. And it's funny that they'll buy a car for $50,000. In 10 years, the car will be worth less than 10% of what they paid for it, and they're okay with that. But when it comes to furniture, that does the exact same thing. They pay a couple $1,000s for a dining room set. 20 years later, it's not worth very much money, but they don't understand. People have to understand that things depreciate, and styles and tastes and everything, they change throughout the years, and that will affect the resale value on your items. And what our job is to go in, and when we see an item, put a price on it that is reflective of what we think the buyer will actually pay. It has nothing to do with what you think it's worth. Is what we know from our experience is, and trying to realistically entice a buyer to come in and pay for this item. And yes, there's going to be things at estate sales that will unfortunately sell for less than what you want, but there's going to be several things at your estate sale that's going to bring a lot more money than what you ever expected. And overall, those will add together, and overall your sale will still do well, because things will sell for more than you think, things will sell for less than you think, and all of that will come together. You have to remember, at the end of the sale, the reason why you're normally doing an estate sale is you've got a lot of stuff that you need out of your hair. You can't take it with you. The family doesn't want it, and you really need to get it gone so that you can move on to either, get moved on with the rest of your life, or to get the house sold. And that's what our job is to get this little burden out of your hair so that we can make your life easier so you can move on. And if you'd like to come to one of our estate sales, we always say come to visit jamesbeanestatesales.com, and you can preview any of our sales online by looking at the pictures and the location. And also, or you can call me at 405-528-0127.